What's up guys, it's Jamie Grace. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm excited to be making this video for you guys today because it's a question that I get a lot and it's something that I talk about on my podcast almost all of the time, but I haven't made a video specifically about this on my YouTube channel in a long time. If you're a kid watching this video, this might not be one of the videos that you want to check out. If you've got kids in the room, maybe pop in some headphones, but that's your decision who you think shouldn't hear what's up in this video. So I'm going to be talking about why I waited. I got married a little over a year ago and I decided to save sex until marriage when I was about 13 or 14 years old. I did wait. I'm glad that I waited and I wanted to talk about why. Nobody made me do it. It wasn't like I'm a pastor's kid, and so I think a lot of people think, oh, she probably had to do some ceremony with a ring and a book when she was 13 and to, promise her father or something. Nobody made me make this decision at all. And yes, a lot of it had to do with my faith, but I actually am going to talk about that last because I want to talk about some other things in no particular order, but just some other things as to why I decided to wait. The first thing is that I decided to wait at about 13 or 14 years old because I realized that sex would be worth waiting for. Unfortunately, I think a lot of young people that grew up in the church, they didn't grow up and I'm not trying to act like I'm just the coolest of the coolest, but they didn't grow up how I grew up. A lot of people that I know grew up thinking that sex was a big monster that was gonna come and get you. It was if you kiss somebody and then if you have sex, you'll die. It was just this really terrifying situation, but that's not how I grew up. From the time that I really kind of understood what it was as I, entered middle high schoolish, I realized that it was a beautiful thing that was for a certain time, and so I understood the context of it and I wanted it to be something that I waited for. Even with every other thing in my life growing up, whether it was a new video game or even a new car, it was never about oh, all this cool stuff, all this awesome stuff, you just get it when you want it. It was a lot of waiting for it, a lot of working toward it, a lot of patience and sometimes frustration of being different and being left out because you don't always have the thing you want. But when it does show up in your life, when it does happen in your life, it will be worth waiting for. And so that was my first introduction to the idea of waiting, was that sex was so beautiful and so wonderful that I wanted it to be with the right person at the right time, and I knew that it would be worth waiting for. Another reason why I decided to wait was because I wanted it to be love and not just sex. I didn't want it to just be a physical thing that I just did to figure it out or to learn more about or because my body was capable of it. I wanted it to be out of love and not out of my body can do this, your body can do that. Let's just put them together and see where it goes. And so that was another reason for me. The third reason I would say is that I didn't feel the need to test drive sex before marriage because sex isn't the entire part of marriage. No, don't get me wrong, it is a part of marriage. It's a great part of marriage, but I made that awkward and it's just because I'm awkward. But a lot of people told me, in high school, when I was in college, when I was out, on tour and all this stuff, people would be like, oh my gosh, don't you want to experience this? You don't know if you're gonna like it, you don't want to marry someone and then you don't, you're not sexually compatible, then it's awkward. A lot of people kind of encouraged the concept of wanting to test drive it before you actually commit to that person forever, and that's the only person you do that with. My kind of argument, I guess, my personal conviction and personal response to that, when we put sex on a pedestal, that it is the main part of a relationship, then there could be disappointment. But when it's a part of the beauty that is marriage, then I don't think that there's disappointment there because it's simply a part of it. Now, I was very what most people may call inexperienced when I got married, and it did make for some awkwardness and a lot of questions, but at the same time, it's I had to learn to embrace the awkward and embrace the imperfect. I didn't want to enter my marriage with a whole long list of experience and say, okay, this is what's gonna happen, X, Y, Z, let's go. Unfortunately, another thing that I think happens in the church and that happens in Christian culture is a lot of young women can have a complete just unawareness of their bodies and of what sex is in general. And so you kind of step into, you know, your wedding night and it's like an episode of Naked and Afraid, and that's not what it should be. You know, there should be able to be open lines of communication and conversations, whether that's with your doctor, your fiance, your pastor, your mentor, whatever that means. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, I saved sex till marriage. I didn't even know how to spell it to my wedding day. Like, that's not what happened. You know, even though I was probably like one of the most like least experienced people that you can imagine, it's about embracing the awkward. And with my husband, who else do I want to embrace the awkward with? And so I think when you're in love with someone, when they are your person, when they're your best friend, then it's okay to embrace awkward and imperfect with them. If he was a total stranger, then I could imagine it being miserable and terrible. But because he's the same person that, you know, when we want to go on a fancy date, we imagine Pizza Hut and Law and Order, or because he's the same person that, you know, helps me like clean up the kitchen when I'm like all tired and pregnant and exhausted and I just can't do it. Like, we have a commitment to each other that is so much deeper and greater than a physical connection, that anything awkward or imperfect, we're ready to face together because it's love. Another reason why I waited is because I didn't want to disengage emotionally. When you have physical intimacy with a person, there's an emotional connection. Like, it's not just physical intimacy, and it can take a lot to have to disengage from someone emotionally. So even for me, when it came to kissing, my husband and I decided that we weren't going to kiss until we knew that we were going to marry each other, because I knew that, yes, I know this from just my own knowledge, but I also know this from having my degree in child and youth psychology and child development. I know from the way the brain works that when there's a physical connection with someone, it's also emotional, it's a lot deeper. And so I wanted to make sure that I waited, because I knew that that physical intimacy with someone, if I didn't stay in a relationship with that person, I would have to then learn to disengage and disconnect from them emotionally. It can be done, but I just personally didn't want to have to do that. So I kept my physical boundaries very strict all through dating. Any date I went on, I kept it very strict. And then when we got together, he and I both just wanted to keep it very strict and intentional so that we'd not have to worry about that in the future. So the second to the last thing that I'll say is that I really wanted the commitment of forever, which I guess that's a lot like the last one. But I knew that sex was something that I desired. It sounded pretty cool. And so I just wanted that commitment of forever with that person, so that it wasn't like, oh, we did this, we had a great time, or oh, we did this. I'd like to try something else or figure this out later. But oh no, we're not together anymore? Okay, next one's, we'll try again. So I just wanted it to be forever. I wanted to be with my forever person, and I did that, and I'm glad that I waited. And so yeah, that's how that turned out. And then last but certainly not least, it is because of my faith. The Christian faith, being Christ-like, the core of it all is so centered around love. And there's so many beautiful passages about love, and the way that God loves us and the way that we should love each other. And so that just really had an impact on my life, and wanting to live a life that I believe lines up with the life that God has called me to live. And I believe in I believe in the context for sex, and so I wanted to be intentional about saving that. But I do also want to say that waiting, it's a beautiful thing. It's a challenging thing. Not gonna lie to you guys. It got the most challenging, I'd say, 4 weeks up until our wedding was, the straight up get out of my apartment and don't look at me ever again, because we knew what we wanted to do. We knew that we wanted to wait, and there were definitely times where we had to be way more vocal and bold about those boundaries than before. But I do want to say that whether you're waiting now, or whether you have been waiting your whole life, or whether you're thinking about starting to wait tomorrow, there is grace and there's mercy for all of that. My husband and I are very open about our story. We share a lot about our story, and tomorrow on our YouTube channel, we're doing a couples Q&A where we actually talk about this stuff together. But I was a virgin until I got married, and my husband had been celibate for a few years. And for us, because of our understanding of our Christian faith, there is no more or less grace for my story or his story, or anyone's story, no matter what, you know what I mean? There's no like, if you've ever been to a church and they've told you like, oh, because you did this, or because you went there, or because that was done to you, then you have to pray a different way, or you don't get grace, or you don't get mercy. Whatever people have told you about grace and mercy, if it hasn't been that grace and mercy is available to all people in all ways, then they were wrong. I am such a firm believer in grace and love and mercy, that being the foundation of the Christian faith, and such a huge reason that contributed to why I decided to wait, and why I encourage other people to consider waiting, to at least think about it, pray about it, read about it. Not to, you know, plug, but shameless plug, I do have a book called Wait It Out. It's on Amazon. And I wrote that book because I want to encourage people to consider waiting, but I also want to encourage you on your walk as you're waiting, whether you've been waiting your whole life or you just started waiting this morning. So I hope that is encouraging to you guys. But thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, I don't really talk about this specific topic a ton on my YouTube channel, usually on my podcast. So if you want to subscribe to that, the Jamie Grace podcast, Saturday and Sunday episodes, it's really fun. We dig into some really deep topics, mostly about dating and relationships, but it's really fun stuff. So click on the screen to subscribe here. Check out the description box below for more info about my podcast. Babe, you want to say hi? I thought he was gonna be like, what's up?
Hey, I made that so awkward. What's up, man?
You did. So click on the screen to subscribe to our family channel, because tomorrow we have a couples Q&A and we talk about this stuff a little bit deeper, so, or kind of the same level of deep, but yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching. I love you guys much. I'll see you soon. I miss you already. Bye.